I'm not going to entertain that question.
Oh, okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to entertain.
Of course not. How many government
The gentlelady will
agencies-
suspend. The gentlelady will suspend.
The head of ICE grilled on Capitol Hill.
What he said about Operation Metro Surge and what he did not say about the two deadly Twin Cities shootings.
Now to that possible new timeline for the governor. As Esme Murphy reports, he thinks the end of the surge is just days away.
The governor spoke here at Malcolm Yards, which is a gathering of 9 different restaurants, ethnic restaurants, right near the University of Minnesota. The governor sounded his most optimistic that he has been since the start of Operation Metro Surge back in December. The governor said it could be likely days, not weeks or months, before Operation Metro Surge actually draws down. The governor said he was saying that after speaking with Susie Walz, who is the president's chief of staff. He spoke to her this morning, and he also spoke with Tom Homan, who is also in charge of Operation Metro Surge right now. He replaced Greg Bavino, who was very controversial. I asked the governor if he could expound a little bit on that optimism.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. It would be my hope that Mr. Homan goes out before Friday and announces that this thing is done. And they're bringing her down, and they're bringing her down in days. That would be my expectation.
The governor did sound a note of caution, though. He said that he is concerned that the president could change his mind. He cited the mercurial nature of the president, that oftentimes he'll make a decision and then roll it back. But so far, what the governor is saying is that he expects, again, this could all happen in a matter of days, that we would see a difference. At Malcolm Yards, Esme Murphy, WCCO News, with photojournalist Mike Dernberger.
In addition to the optimism, a warning about the future of small businesses across the Twin Cities. Governor Walz says all proposals are on the table when it comes to helping businesses keep their doors open. Data shows that many Latino and immigrant-owned shops and restaurants are barely hanging on under Operation Metro Surge. Business owners we spoke to say they need economic relief at the state level, and they need it now.
We are actually struggling a lot. This is the first month I'm delayed in rent, I'm delayed in payroll, I'm delayed in, my loans, I'm delayed in electricity, I'm delayed in so many things right now.
A dire picture of what could come next, plus the possible solutions coming up all new at 5.
Live images from the Capitol where the leaders of Border Patrol and ICE were in the hot seat today. As Jonah Kaplan reports, there were some predictable political fault lines, but also some surprising areas of agreement.
This was the first time since the shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy that the heads of these agencies went before and sworn in for testimony in front of this congressional committee. And we're talking about ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Customs and Border Protection, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Here they are being sworn in. Again, the beginning of the House Homeland Security Committee. Republicans on the committee asking the leaders about the role of protesters, antagonizing the agents, threatening the agents, and the rhetoric and decision-making of local leaders. Democrats on the committee, meanwhile, grilling the witnesses about the agents' conduct and training. The witnesses all refusing to answer questions about the shootings, citing ongoing investigations. But they did say things have calmed down in Minneapolis, thanks to the arrival of Border Czar Tom Homan.
We've seen a de-escalation in the fact that the protests, while they still go on, have subsided, and ICE has been allowed to do their targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation. Just the other night, local authorities arrested 54 protesters at the local level where ICE officers did not have to be engaged in that.
There was also some revealing information about training, about schedules, and about the number of body cameras that are currently deployed among agents in Minneapolis and beyond. We're going to have more details on that coming up all new at 5. Jonah Kaplan, WCCO News.
A new report finds hundreds have been charged with interfering with federal agents. The reporting by Reuters says at least 655 people have been charged since city-by-city immigration crackdowns began last summer. They found that's more than double the year before. Becky Ringstrom says that she was tailing ICE agents in her Blaine neighborhood last month. They arrested her and charged the mother of 7 under a federal law that criminalizes impeding law enforcement.
If we don't show the world what's happening, people will continue to think that this is like just something small, and it's not. If anything, things are escalating even further.
A federal official told Ringstrom that her name and photo would be added to a government database. Hear what the head of ICE said about that database, coming up all new at 6.
New evidence released today in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Investigators have shared photos and video of a masked person on Guthrie's porch the night she went missing. Take a look. The suspect here appears to be wearing a handgun holster and a backpack. They tried to cover a camera near the front porch before putting plants in front of it. The mother of Today's Show host, Savannah Guthrie, went missing more than a week ago. This is the first real break in the case. Savannah took to social media today, writing that someone out there recognizes this person. We believe she is still out there. Bring her home. The White House is echoing that message.
The president encourages any American across the country with any knowledge of this suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities who are leading this investigation on the ground.
We know Nancy is not in good health and needs daily medication. It's unclear if the Guthrie family has had any contact with the person who took Nancy or if the ransom notes demanding money are authentic. We'll have more to come. We dig deeper into the case coming up at 4:30.
A teenager is dead after a shooting in Burnsville. Police found a 14-year-old boy in the lobby of the Glen Apartments on Harriet Avenue South just after 10:30 last night. Officers tried to save the boy, but he died at a hospital. Police do not think this was a random shooting. No word yet on any arrests in the case. Hundreds of people found themselves chatting online with cops during a recent human trafficking operation by the Bloomington Police Department.
Chief Booker Hodges says Operation Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places was a record. There were 30 arrests in all, including a federal worker, but the chief says there could have been more.
We talked to over 330 people looking to purchase sex here in the city of Bloomington. We would have arrested more, but there were citizens who, obviously with Operation Metro Surge going on, citizens thought that we were potentially ICE, and that kind of interfered with our operation.
The chief says the operation took place last week over 2 days. They used a hotel as bait for these suspects, but community members would post online alerting people that law enforcement was present. He says despite the challenges, the work will continue.
In Washington today, Senate Democrats stood with survivors of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as they introduced legislation to eliminate the statute of limitations for victims. Natalie Brand was there.
Justice should not expire.
Standing alongside survivors who say they were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Virginia Giuffre's family, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer introduced a bill called Virginia's Law.
It allows survivors to seek accountability when they're ready, when they're strong enough.
The legislation would eliminate the statute of limitations for civil claims brought by survivors of trafficking and sexual exploitation.
Change must mean justice, not someday, not in speeches.
In a different room on Capitol Hill, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick faced questions from lawmakers amid bipartisan calls to resign over his ties to the disgraced financier.
I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
Lutnick has not been accused of wrongdoing, but acknowledged he visited Epstein's private island with his family.
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation.
Another document in the files released by the Justice Department reveals more about what President Trump may have known in the early stages of the Epstein investigation.
The Miami Herald was the first to report about an FBI interview with a Palm Beach police chief who recalls a phone call from President Trump in 2006, where Trump says everyone knew of Epstein's activities and described Maxwell as Epstein's operative, calling her evil.
What President Trump has always said is that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, and that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning.
The DOJ says it's not aware of any corroborating evidence that the president contacted law enforcement 20 years ago. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.